another session on how do I quilt the quilt. We have a great one today. So we have a finished quilt that is 75 by 85. And before I go into this quilt, I will say that I have a wonderful, precious friend, and she knows how to take this with heart. But she's absolutely crazy. So why do I say that? Well, this quilt is 75 by 85, but every single one of these little squares is 1/2 of an inch. So, as soon as you stop laughing and close your jaw, that if you're like me, it's dropped, we will look at how to quilt this quilt. It's actually truly gorgeous, and Debbie knows that I do that with fun of heart, but I could never do this. So, how do you take this quilt and really do it justice with all the work that's gone into it? And you definitely want to draw attention somehow to the gorgeous part of this quilt. I mean, it's all scraps. They're cut at 1 inch. They finish at 1/2 inch. Could you imagine the time that it takes? And it did take her quite a while. So after all of that, let's get back into what can we do. So can we do an all-over design on this? You know I'm going to say yes. Of course, I normally wouldn't on this, but if you do not want to quilt specifically on this quilt, I did a video recently on the all-over long arm feather design, and that would actually look fine and good if you wanted to do that on the intersection. That would look just fine. It would look good. So that is an option. Then I told you I normally wouldn't do the border, and this has a large inner border. I wouldn't do that with feathers here. And I wouldn't in this case either, because if you're going to do that, I would quilt the whole quilt with the all over feathers, not just the center part, because it would take away from what you did in the middle. So if you're going to do the feathers in the middle and you want something in the border, another option that would be similar to the feathers. And let me get another color here so it stands out better. That would be similar to the feathers, but would not be feathers. Would be to do more of bring in some leaves and things with this. So you could still do it as a border in a feathery type, but use leaves. You can use just a little berry design. Use the curl or the swirl. Use that little splay that you have, and tie all of those in to a border design. So real quick, I'll just show you. And this isn't going to be great looking because I'm just going to do it real quick. And this is just showing you quickly what you can do. So this would still be considered kind of a type of a feathery border. And it would look great with the feathers on the inside. However, then on the outside, in this little spot here, it looks big, but you've got a block that's going to finish at 1.5 inches. And I think this border is 1/2 inch each. So you've got a finished area that's 2 inches. So you can, if you stitched in the ditch, that would leave you 2 inches. You could leave that alone if you wanted to, or I will go into some designs that you could do in the background area, and you could just stitch in the ditch rather than go every single one. You could do it in the 9 patch areas. Before I go any further on this quilt, let me go back and talk about stitching in the ditch. If you're going to do an all over design on this with feathers or whatever else you may like, there's no half square triangles in this, but there's lots of seams. So it just depends on how well it lays down. If you need to do stitching in the ditch, here's your seams across that you would do for there. And then I'd probably skip up at the top of the block. Remember, these are 1/2 inches. So that means this is only 1.5, 3, 4.5 inches. So this square is only 4.5 inches big. So you would be okay if you wanted to. You could stitch in a ditch more, but you'd be fine. And you do it the same way on the opposite directions, and that would be your stitching in the ditch. If you're going to do some individual designs, like I'll show you in a minute, definitely I would stitch in the ditch in those areas, and then around as you get to them, around the perimeters. I would go around this area, this small border, and then do the border, and then go outside of the border. And you could, I probably would go there, and then you can decide. I probably would go outside of it, and then you can decide whether you want to do inside that 1/2 inch. I probably wouldn't. I'd probably just go on the other side. Depends on what really makes it lay down and look good. It's possible after doing this border, rather than going here, you could go straight inside and do these 1/2 inches. I know that's kind of vague, but a lot of this has to do with what the quilt, how the quilt lays. So quickly, let me go on. Then you've got your border here, and then the outside, you could do another simple border. You could do your straight lines. Whoops, I'm sorry. Here we go. You could do a simple design here, or you could do straight lines. You could also do your lines like this. Again, your blocks are 1.5 inches, so you can utilize those to skip and do some straight lines. You could also do your cross hatching again as well. That would look great on this quilt. Simple things that, yes, we use them over and over again in different quilts. They look different ways and they look good. So let's look at another way that we might quilt this quilt. And I think I have one kind of worked on. Okay, so yes, what would I do? This is it. I would work around this area, and you don't have to draw anything. I would work within the seams, except for in the corners. I would come into the background area and bend this a little bit, and I would do a feathered wreath. Most definitely, no question. It would be gorgeous. I would definitely stitch in the ditch here. Now, you could go ahead and do feathers, not feathers, do leaves in this area, if you like. Somewhere on one of these, I had another design. I don't see it. Let me just check and make sure that I don't have it here. I think I accidentally got rid of it, so I'll just show you. There was another design that I like a whole lot better. Remember, these are small areas, so this area, each of these open areas are 1.5 inches. But let me get this bigger. We could work from the center. Here we go. We'll use that one. We can work from the center and just do a simple teardrop in each of these open areas all the way around. And that would be just stunningly gorgeous. Let me put 4 of those together for you real quick because they go pretty quick. I'll leave it at that so you can see. That would be gorgeous in between those feather wreaths. And that's really what I would do. But you could do the leaves. They would look gorgeous. Then if I did that, I would indeed do a beautiful feather. Oh my goodness. Lay it out, make it look good, and I would do a gorgeous feather in this border here. It would be beautiful. If you wanted to, you could do flowers in the corner here and just work your feathers off of those flowers. In this border here, I would repeat what I did right here. They would just be modified because you don't have the extra background here. So it would not have one right here. It would go straight to the corner and into the corners. And it would just be a little bit more modified. But it would be beautiful. Then I would continue on the outside border, and you can do basically another feather, a smaller feather if you like. I've shown ones where you're just you're drawing your feather, but you're only doing the feathers on one side at a time. You can do that. You can show some of the designs, do some of the designs that I just showed, doing an all over design. So this quilt would be gorgeous, but I'm telling you, it would be beautiful with these teardrops and the feathered wreath. If you're that crazy to do a quilt like this, be crazy enough to learn feathers and quilt it with those, because it's going to be fantastic. So Debbie, truly, you know I love you, and you are amazing. This is going to be a fantastic quilt, and Debbie's coming out to see me next week, so I get to pick her up Monday at the airport, but I'll still make my posts. Have a great day, and we will see you on Friday for some doodling. Bye-bye.